Welcome to Live from the Table, the official podcast for the world-famous Comedy Cellar. I am here with Noam Dworman, the owner of the Comedy Cellar. I'm Periel Ashenbrand, the producer of the show. And we have a very special...
Hey, who's the third person before you introduce...
My amazing child, Ari Solomon, is joining us. We have a very special guest.
Say hello.
Today.
Say hello.
Hi.
Christian Cooper is here, the Emmy-winning host of Extraordinary Birder and author of New York Times bestselling memoir, Better Living Through Birding, and a board member of the New York City Bird Alliance.
Yep, you got all that right. And also, I have a kid's book that just came out, The Urban Owls.
Which I just read.
Showed it to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hand me the book?
Which is wonderful. And I have to say that
Can you get a shot of this, Tiana? The Urban Owls, how Flaco and friends made the city their home.
Oh, Flaco was the owl who escaped the...
Talk closer to the mic, yeah.
No, so Flaco was the owl who escaped. It's like it was being kept somewhere.
Yeah, he was cut loose. Someone sprung him from the Central Park Zoo.
He was an Eurasian eagle owl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Big guy.
He died.
Well, and he does have another credit that might be interesting to the audience.
But can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I just want to say that your show on Netflix is extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
It's really wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
finished it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also, this is the man who was involved in the famous Birder versus the Karen debacle in Central Park in 2021? 2021?
A while.
Whatever it was.
A while ago.
And of course, because I like to cause trouble, I want to ask you about that. But first, if you don't mind. But I don't know if that if we could talk about that. But of course, talk about the birder stuff. Periel is like your biggest fan.
No, Ari's his biggest fan.
Are you guys going to have a hair pulling fight over that?
We might. I don't know. Listen, I have to say, I grew up in Queens. I'm a native New Yorker. I've zero interest in Central Park or really anything nature related at all. I feel like you just stay out of Central Park unless you want to get like sexually assaulted or Lyme disease.
Oh, come on.
And then all of a sudden, I have this child who becomes is like a hip hop loving, basketball loving kid who, against all odds, suddenly becomes a birder. And
it happens in the best families.
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
How did he come out to you?
I was actually...
Mom, I have something to tell you.
Kind of. I was actually totally scandalized because I was like, gross, we're going to get like avian flu. Like,
Oh, my God.
Really?
I mean, you're just protective. We wore gloves when it was winter, but now we just feed them from the hand.
Well, and...
Are you supposed to do that?
It's not the best thing, because you're basically, the ideal way to bird is you are focused on seeing the bird on its terms. So you want to see it doing its natural behaviors and carrying on as if you're not there. So that's the best way to observe birds. So it's not the end of the world, but eventually you might want to graduate to stalking them like you're a hunter, without actually killing them and just getting these really great views of some amazing birds. Like right now it's spring migration, and there are masses of gorgeous songbirds passing through Central Park every day. I was out there this morning, despite the weather, not for very long because it was cold, but I saw some wonderful stuff. So scarlet tanagers are in the park right now.
In my backyard, we see a lot of beautiful birds, mostly because my dogs are chasing them. But actually, I heard you like dogs too, right? You are a dog lover too. Dirty
little secret. It blows my rep, but yes, I actually love dogs.
So go ahead, Periel. Go ahead.
I guess I'd like. Is it okay to put up like a feeder, like in that?
Yeah, a feeder's a little bit different because then you're a little bit out of the picture. The birds aren't associating human beings with food necessarily.
Just the plastic.
It's just the plastic, exactly.
Put that.
Come close to the mic.
Are you vegetarian?
Oh God, no! I'm a heavy duty meat eater.
You eat birds?
Oh my God, poultry fear me. I eat eggs for breakfast in the morning.
Monster are you?
I know, right?
Eggs are not birds, but
and I eat chicken and I eat turkey, and but what I stopped eating is beef, and the reason is not health reasons, but because in a lot of parts of the world they are chopping down the rainforest to make cheap grazing land for cattle, so that they can sell cheap beef to all the fast food places, and that's just wreaking havoc with the populations of some of our own birds. They fly down to Brazil where they're looking for a habitat to winter in, and then suddenly the place they've gone to for years is chopped down and gone.
Okay, but this is actually interesting because, of course, part of the reason we don't eat dogs, if we think about it, is not because dogs are any different than any other animal. They're apparently no dumber no smarter than pigs. But we have affection for them, and it rubs us the wrong way. But you have so much affection for birds, but you can tolerate eating. You must
tolerate. I love it.
Right. So you must have given some thought to that, right? You must give you pause at some point.
Well, there's a difference between in my head anyway, between a domesticated chicken and wild birds. I would not dream of eating, for example, any of the songbirds that are passing through Central Park right now. And in some parts of the world, like around the Mediterranean, they're delicacies to catch songbirds and eat them, which makes my blood boil.
Right.
But
it's so random.
Yeah, people will eat anything around the globe.
No, but it's random that this one's okay and that one's not.
No, it's the difference between a domesticated animal that has been bred as a food source versus a wild animal. If I were a hunter, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it either. I'm not a hunter, and I don't have a problem with hunters. Hunters, for example, there are duck hunters who go out and shoot wild ducks. Now, hopefully they eat them, which is good. But the fact that there are duck hunters out there is one of the reasons why we still have ducks, because the wetlands were all being destroyed, and the duck hunters wanted to still have ducks able to breed so that they would have something to hunt. So actually, birders and hunters banded together and join forces to try to save the ducks, and it has to an extent. Yeah.
Could you bring? If I wanted to say, hey, me and some friends are going duck hunting. I actually have a friend who goes duck hunting in Mississippi. I say, come on, Christian, come with us. You think you could shoot a bird?
No, absolutely not.
You could.
You know why? I can tell you, because I actually tried deer hunting once with a bow and arrow upstate on a friend's property. And I thought, this will give me an appreciation for where my meat is coming from. And it'll help the environment because it'll reduce the overpopulation of deer that are browsing the forest too much and destroying the habitat for birds. Plus, there was an organization that would butcher your kill and distribute the meat to like soup kitchens so that poor people would have like quality protein. So I'm like, win. I'm all in. And I went out there and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I couldn't shoot Bambi.
I don't think I could do it either.
Yeah.
You couldn't? I think you could.
I think like a lot of things, and this is for a lot of horrible things. The first one is very, very hard. The second one, and at some point you get used to it, and then you're doing it, and this is part of why humans do such terrible things sometimes. They get used to it, right? But the first one, I just couldn't. I don't know if I could pull the trigger.
I couldn't.
Well, and I freely admit it's, I'm talking from a position of privilege where I can go to a supermarket and buy my food, someone else having done the dirty work.
Of course.
If I was hungry enough, if my family depended on me to feed them, and the only way to do it was to kill a deer, I'd shoot that bow and arrow,
For sure. I mean, I'd eat a person if, that situation.
I used to joke related to this, like the first time that Barack Obama had to authorize a drone strike on where some innocent person would likely die. I'm sure this was almost impossible for him. He agonized over it and then had to do it, right? And I imagine like 8 years later, Mr. President, I'm watching the game here. Just do what you got. What are you bothering me for? You know the answer is yes. and that's not a criticism of Barack Obama.
Yeah.
This is the way humans are, you know?
Yeah, sadly.
Sadly. Well, it's part of, we need to be able to get used to these. Okay, all right, what do you want to ask? Go ahead.
Get close to the mic, though.
Chicken also just tastes better in general.
Yeah, you can do wonderful things to chicken, like put them in mole sauce. You ever had mole sauce?
I wouldn't like eat a blue jay or something, or a bald eagle. Also, I wouldn't be allowed to. But chicken is different.
See, he gets it.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat duck because I just wouldn't. Chicken's like the only bird I would eat.
What about turkey?
Hand me the book.
Turkey too.
Okay.
I only eat turkey on Thanksgiving. I would, if I had to, I'd eat.
What about those chickens that you're trying to get me to buy you as a pet? What are those called?
Oh, the silkies.
Yeah.
The
silkies.
I don't know anything about that.
You'd bring them out there. You brought
Tiana,
it up.
can you pull up a picture of the silky chicken?
All right, this is a little dull. Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you know? First of all, I have tremendous respect for anybody who can write a book, even a child's book. I think it's an amazing thing to be able to conjure a fictional story that's engaging and children. So
Well, the beautiful thing about this is it isn't even fictional. It's the story of actual owls that have showed up in Central Park.
oh, that's less impressive actually. But have you heard of this? Have you heard of? In case anybody was on the edge of their seat. This is what is that?
That's
A silky chicken.
Oh, that is pretty.
Oh, okay.
It looks like Cousin It from the Addams Family.
Yes.
But the difference is that this is cute, right? If I had a normal chicken, I wouldn't say it was cute.
Right. So you wouldn't eat that?
No,
Okay.
probably not.
They're supposed to be very friendly and sweet.
Now, do you know the children's book writer Dalov Ipkar?
No.
Okay, well, the Dalov Ipkar is this Maine-based kids writer who their books are similar to this. And I know you didn't do the artwork, but I think she does the artwork too. But you might look up Dalov Ipkar. But I have a reading to do for my son's 8th birthday at his school.
It's a great book.
And maybe I'll read this. But
Well,
anyway.
and the illustrations are gorgeous by somebody named Kristen Adam, and she did an incredible job.
Now, how did you get connected with her?
The publisher actually connected us up. Yeah.
And how did you know you wanted to write a children's book?
Well, I mean, I've worked with kids for a long time in the New York City public schools. So, reaching out to kids, getting them hooked early to go birding, like this guy over here, is a big thing of mine.
Really?
Yeah. So, when they approached me about, maybe doing this, and I thought about it, and we kind of worked out, I didn't want to make it just about Flaco. I wanted to also make it about the wild owls that we have. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. We
Now, when you got all your notoriety for the thing we're going to talk about, did agents approach you with opportunities? Or I mean, I'm assuming maybe that in some way your notoriety helped you get some of these opportunities, which is just the way the world works.
I would be a liar if I said otherwise.
So
yeah.
did they descend upon you to try to give you opportunities? How did it work?
I don't think anybody descended on me, but actually the most interesting thing was I got a phone call out of the blue from an executive highly placed in National Geographic. And she said, "Oh, we've always wanted to do a birding show. Would you be interested in going around the country and shooting in different places about the birds there?" And I'm like, "Let me think about it." Yes.
Well, it was obvious. It had to be obvious to anybody who saw you do any interviews that you actually have a natural appeal. Like, you're handsome, you're well spoken.
Oh, wow. Keep talking. Are you listening, boyfriend?
You went to Harvard, right?
Yes.
So you're quite bright. So yeah. So it's not like they were giving opportunities to somebody who they would have naturally not taken note of if you had gotten on their radar. But I guess that's how you got on their radar.
Yeah, I mean, it opened some doors, and I was happy to walk through them. Because spreading the gospel of birding is something I've always enjoyed doing, and this just gave me a chance to do it on a larger platform.
Now, how young were you when when you realized you were a birder? Did you always know you were a birder?
I was about 9 or 10 years old. Yeah.
And tell us about that.
Well, okay, so in birding, there's this thing called your spark bird, and it's the bird that first got you interested in birding, and then, you went down the rabbit hole, which is a mixed metaphor, but, so for me, it was the red-winged blackbird. And
Can you bring that up, Tiana? Go ahead, yeah.
I built a bird feeder and put it up in the backyard, and I kept watching all...
Now, you grew up in a home?
No, I was born in Manhattan, but I grew up in the suburbs on Long Island.
On Long Island, okay, go ahead.
So put up the bird feeder on Long Island, and I kept seeing these black birds with a little patch of red at the shoulder of the wing. And in my preteen excitement, I was like, I've discovered a new species of crow. And I was all excited. And then I found out they were red-winged blackbirds. But I still love that bird to this day.
I had to do a research project for school all about them.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
So you grew up in, this is just interesting to me. You grew up in a white neighborhood in Long Island?
Mixed
Neighborhood in Long Island.
Yeah, it was, in fact, back then, now it's almost all black and Latino, but back then it was about 50-50 black and white.
And your circle of friends were mixed?
Mixed, yeah.
Did they think you were odd? You were into your bird thing?
Well, that's the thing, and if I really think about it, actually, most of my friends were white because I was in mostly honors classes, and most of the other kids in those classes were white for whatever reason you want to point to for that. So it was mixed to an extent, but there were also a lot of white kids in my circle of friends.
But because like it's just things to me. Like I didn't have any friends who were like all into birds.
No, oh my God, no, I was already like an oddball, and this just like sealed the deal.
What part of Long Island?
Nassau County, close to the...
I grew up in Queens.
Okay, so this is not far from the Queens border. Okay. South Shore.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, who's birding at that age? And it's not going to make you popular.
And this is in the 70s?
This is in the 70s. Yeah.
So you're a young gay kid, a birder.
Yep.
Was this
and a nerd. Died in the wool nerd.
And a nerd.
Oh.
So was this a difficult childhood or a happy childhood or mixed?
Oh, it was difficult, particularly because of the gay thing. Because I knew I was gay from a super early age, like about the age of 5. Like, before I even knew I was a birder.
Yeah.
And, in the 70s on Long Island, that was not a thing to be.
You should say, I knew I didn't like chicks even before I was a birder.
Well, and actually, that's a mnemonic. I use the gay mnemonic for a bird called the Canada warbler that's in Central Park right now, and that mnemonic is chicks. I don't think that's really for me.
So I interrupted you. Continue.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it was difficult. The way the parable I usually use, or the metaphor, is it felt like being buried alive, because you know who you are, but you've got to keep it hidden, and it's like you're trapped in a coffin. You're pounding on the lid, screaming to get out, and nobody knows. They're all walking across your grave, thinking you're fine, thinking everything's okay, and they don't know you're down there, just screaming. So it was really hard. I think that's why I'm a generally happy person now, because after that, everything's fine. It's like I came through that. I'm good. I'm out now. And, the world is a good place.
When did you come out? Like, when did you leave Long Island and you were like, spread your wings, if you will?
I waited till I was out of the house and at college.
Okay.
And about halfway through freshman year, I came out to my roommates, first of all. And that was a big deal because, it's 5 guys living together.
Yeah.
And, we had gotten super close over the first semester of college. And we were all deciding, we want a room together next year. And we had to pick housing. And I was like, I cannot go through another minute of this.
Yeah.
So I took them aside one by one and told them, and they were great. To this day, we're best buds.
It's sort of incredible how much times have changed, huh?
A lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, back then, you couldn't see a gay person on TV except for a very special episode of Dallas. It's some TV movie of the week kind of thing. Now,
Billy Crystal played a gay guy in the soap.
In Soap.
Soap, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the early ones.
Yeah.
The world has changed a lot. Not enough in some ways.
But it's amazing how much it has vis-a-vis that issue.
Well, I mean, gay people can get married now. A gay person ran for president. Don't get me started on that. But, it's like,
No, it's
Donald Trump is gay.
Don't wish that on us.
it's a miraculous change in the sense that one couldn't have imagined
That's right.
the change was coming.
Yeah, but it's not miraculous. It's a lot of hard work by a lot of people over many years. It's also part of the effect of AIDS, because where a lot of people were hidden before, because, you can hide. That's the horrible curse of being gay. People think it's an advantage that you can hide it. It's like, that's not an advantage. That's hell.
And Jewish.
No, there are some parallels.
You think you're hiding being Jewish?
She's got a Star of David around her neck, for God's sake.
Oh my God. Out of touch with herself. Go ahead.
But anyway.
No one will know, Maury.
What the AIDS crisis did was, people were dying.
Yeah.
And it brought it to the forefront, and it made people actually have to think about it and see other gay people caring for gay people, and it humanized us. I think that sort of fast-forwarded things.
We just had this conversation, but
It did humanize gay people, but of course, I grew up in Greenwich Village, so my experience is not typical of the rest of the countries. But even after AIDS, the change that came with gay marriage was just stunning. It was almost like it was overnight. People that I knew who were bigots by my own. It's funny. It was a bigotry that I was so used to, and had been raised to consider it as bigotry. But it was so ubiquitous. It was almost like you couldn't even go to war with your friends over it, or cut people off, because everybody had. It was just like
Sure.
But I saw people I knew very quickly come to their senses about this, because all of a sudden somebody got married in the apartment next door. So they were invited to a gay wedding. And like I said, I'd never seen any change like that.
Well, the other thing is that gay people started getting married, and the sky didn't fall.
Yeah.
It was all the dire predictions. None of them came true. So,
they were all bullshit.
yeah, well, I think
The
people.
sanctity of marriage.
Well, people
and all
have their
this
religious
nonsense.
beliefs about marriage, and they're entitled to those, and they should live those. But don't try to make me live by your religious rules, because I ain't gonna, and I'll fight tooth and nail against that.
Absolutely.
I was wrong on the gay marriage. I was always for civil unions. I mean, I can remember my father drumming into me as a little boy how awful it was that like a married couple can automatically give all their property and can be visited when they're dying in the hospital, and that gay couples didn't have this right. So he was always very much in favor, as I was, of the fact that you should be able to decide. You should be able to define vis-a-vis the government who your family is. The government doesn't get to tell you who your family is. And by the way, you don't even have to kind of indicate that you're having a sexual relationship with that person. If I just want to say, well, my best friend Johnny, we're not lovers, but when I die, he's the one who he's my person, and that's the person on my property is going to. What do you care? I have to be fucking him for you to respect it, right? So
Jesus Christ.
so that was always my attitude. But the actual moniker of marriage, yeah, I have to admit, I was like, well, that just seems like they were trying to ram it down the throat of the religious people. It seemed like something spiteful about it. And I immediately changed. I immediately realized I was wrong about that when Obama lit the White House up in the
Rainbow
rainbow.
flag, yeah.
And I saw the exuberance.
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, I guess I should have seen that coming, but there was such happiness. I don't know if there's been another example of that kind of happiness that I've seen.
I can tell you what would bring that kind of happiness, I think.
Yeah.
Laugh at me if you want, but if DC becomes a state, I think there's going to be such an explosion of joy that we have spread democracy within our own borders, because those people are so put down. They don't get to vote, really. They don't get representation. And there's more people there than in Wyoming or Vermont. So, if they gave DC statehood, that would be.
Now, would you be saying that if you thought DC was going to be another Republican state?
Let me put it this way.
Democracy. mercy.
I'd probably be muttering it under my breath. but the principle remains true. And quite honestly, the way things are these days, there's no guarantee that, a largely minority population is going to vote Democratic all the time anyway.
But I'm sorry, I just met you, and I'm saying there's no way you'd be saying that every.
Well, like I said, I'd be mumbling it quietly with the microphone off.
All right, listen, you seem like such a nice man. This is the second time this has happened to me, where like there's this whole other issue of stuff that you had, and I have actual questions about it, but if you don't want to even talk about it, I'm okay with that too. I don't want to put you through the.
Well, I recognize that what happened in Central Park is part of my story now. There's no getting around that. But the context in which I like to talk about it is, what can we learn from it? And we, I mean everyone. Talking about her and all of that's not the problem. I always say that if you are looking for someone to yell at because of what happened to me in Central Park, look in the mirror. Because we all have these biases and we act on them unconsciously or consciously, but hopefully unconsciously. And until we start examining them as a society, as individuals, we're not going to get out of this horrible racial mess we're in these days.
When she said, and I won't make you sit through the video, although we might, if we're going to talk, we might cut the video into the show. I don't want to make you squirm and have to watch it.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the Ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
When she said, I'm going to call the cops and tell them there's an African-American man threatening, I don't know what the exact words were. Mm-hmm. What did you take that as? Some people at the time took it to mean like assault by cop, like the cops are going to come and beat you up. Other people took it to mean that she was knew you'd be intimidated, that you might be afraid of the cops. And other people took it to mean just that she blurted out kind of like the bubble in her head, like doesn't have, like. How did you take it at the time?
Well, I mean, blurting out the bubble on in your head is that kind of racial bias, unconscious racial bias that I'm talking about that we need to examine. I mean, it was clearly an attempt to intimidate, because saying I'm going to tell the cops, that an African-American man is threatening my life, to me, as if I don't realize I'm African-American and revelation, I'm black, so that it was definitely an attempt to intimidate. But, it was a heated moment. It was the middle of COVID. We were going at each other verbally. Neither of us.
Was she actually scared?
No, you can see that in the video. She was angry. She was angry that I was videotaping her, that I was recording her on my cell phone. All of that said,
you've sat down with her since then. And
no. We've never encountered each other since. All of that said, you know what? Her life is hers, and let her make of her life what she wants to. I'm doing that. I'm just, moving ahead and making my life what I want to make out of it. And that's all you can do.
I'll tell you how I saw it at the time. And my wife and I, she got very angry with me about this. She was 100% on your side. I own a bar, and I'd seen many bar fights where the person who was actually in the right said something ugly to the person they were fighting with, if you picked up the story from that moment, and that was never, and they lost a little bit of the high ground that way, call them a name or God forbid a slur. And that was not defensible, but it didn't change the story that transpired prior. And the problem with that video for me was that we picked up the story at that moment. And I was always like, what happened? Why is she so agitated? And then this thing came out that you had written about, that you had said to, I have it here. I don't get it wrong. God forbid that you had written that, this is you. All you have to do is take him to the other side of the drive outside the Ramble. I guess that's I don't even know the geography.
That's the place in Central Park.
Okay, and you can let him run off the leash all you want. And she says it's too dangerous. I don't know why. You can explain that, why she would think it's too dangerous.
It's not.
Yeah, but why she would think that. And
she didn't.
Okay, and then so she's lying. And then you said, look, if you're gonna do what you want, I'm gonna do what I want, but you're not going to like it. What's that? And then this is you saying to the dog, come here, puppy. That seems menacing. At least it could have been menacing, was it?
You know, you can make all kinds of arguments about, my actions and her actions up until that point. I always come back to the fact that, conflicts between dog walkers, let me rephrase that, because there are plenty of responsible dog walkers.
Yeah.
Conflicts between irresponsible dog walkers and birders in the park is the second oldest story in the Ramble. So why did this become, headline front page news? It was because race got injected into the situation. And that wasn't me. That was her.
No.
She injected race into the situation.
But if somebody said to me, well, if you can do what you want to do, I'm going to do what I want to do, and you're not going to like it, and then they tried to give my dog or something I cared about food, right? I'd be like, that sounds menacing is the word.
It's absolutely an escalation. We were both escalating to try to get our way.
Yeah. It might even get me to call the cops.
It's interesting because she tells the cops there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Oh, here's another way to put it. If she had never said African-American man, it
wouldn't have been front page news.
Right, but would she have been guilty of, would her reaction have been ridiculous based on that action?
Yes.
It would have been.
Yes.
So why?
Well, again, if you look at the video, she's mad. She's not fearful in any way. In fact, she rushes towards me to try to grab the cell phone out of my hand.
Yeah.
So, if you're fearful, you're going to back away from the person. If you're fearful, you're going to call the cops. You're not going to tell the person that you're going to call the cops and tell them your race. You're just going to call the cops if you're fearful.
Okay.
So that's why, it's like, we were both pushing to get the outcome we wanted. She just pushed in a way that tapped into some really ugly stuff in society.
No question. All right, I'm going to ask you one or one and a half more questions about this, and then we'll get back onto it because I don't want to get attacked for that. I also saw where you had said, like in a community board meeting or somewhere, that you had a few incidents where people put their hand. Things had gotten so heated about this very same issue that people had actually put their hands on you. Now you're a big guy, so they had to be pretty angry to put their hands on you. And then there was this one guy who even went under oath and said, well, if he said to her the way he said, a black guy, he said to her the way he said to me, I don't blame her for calling the cops. So what is your answer? You've heard this argument. What is your answer to the fact? It does seem to be, I hope you don't turn against me because of this, when someone has had 2 or 3 similar incidents that approached physical altercations, that perhaps there's a pattern there. So what was that?
My answer is simple. I will never apologize for fighting to protect the birds in their habitat. Just won't do it. And that's what's going on in the Ramble, in Prospect Park, on the beaches, in the Rockaways, is that there are people who have a sense of entitlement and they know the rules, but they don't think the rules apply to them. So at that point, you can either let the person walk all over you, in which case, in these instances, you're talking about harm to the birds and harm to the place that the birds need in order to refuel in their migration. or you can do something about it. And, I was raised by parents who were civil rights activists. I lived through the AIDS epidemic and saw people do all kinds of things with ACT UP that were outside the bounds of what is considered polite society. This does not rise to that moral level, obviously, but the principle is the same, that, I'm not going to be nice when I have an opportunity to be effective. And so I just won't apologize for protecting the birds and their habitat.
Can you tell us the stories about the other incidents, like with this guy, Jerome Lockett, or where it almost came to blows?
Yeah, I actually remember this guy. If he's black, he's mixed, or maybe he's Latino. You'll have to ask him.
He said he's black. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So his dog was running through the ramble off the leash, and I said, sir, dogs in the ramble have to be on the leash at all times. He's like, yeah, expletive you or whatever. I don't remember exactly what he said. And I said, well, look, if we're all going to break the rules, I can do what I want too. And, he said, go ahead, do whatever you want. I said, okay. So I called his dog. No treats, no nothing. I just said, come here, puppy. And the dog came right to me, like bounded into my lap. And he lost his mind because, he's like, no, you don't call my dog. And he ran over and he thumped me in the chest. And, I don't do physical violence.
He was physical to you first.
Oh, I was never physical. I don't do physical violence. I am a firm believer in the what Isaac Asimov wrote in the Foundation trilogy. This is where the nerd in me comes out. But he wrote, violence is the last resort of the incompetent. And I just don't do physical violence.
So then maybe he, listen, anytime in a lawsuit where somebody gets testimony that they, like in divorce things, I understand you. This is like the least reliable of kind of testimonies. His testimony was, but when I saw that video, I thought I cannot imagine if he approached her the same way. I cannot imagine if he approached her the same way, how she may have genuinely been afraid for her life.
Well, you have to, and the other thing you have to remember is that
it sounds like it sounds like he's saying the opposite of what he's saying, but no, he means like if.
Well, and the other thing you have to remember is that these particular irresponsible dog walkers never expect any sort of pushback.
Yeah.
They think they can do what they want and there's nothing you can do about it, which is an incredibly silly attitude. Of course there's something. A whole bunch of us can do about it.
It's true, though. I see them every weekend, these people that they have their dog. And I mean, you just read about all of these horrible things that these dogs off leash do, too. They're mauling children. They're mauling other dogs. I can't imagine what they're doing to the birds.
The tipping point for me was there was a pair of ring-necked pheasants that used to nest in the ramble. Magnificent birds. And the idea that they were living in the middle of New York City was insane. And this is an apocryphal story, may or may not be true, but one spring I was like, where'd the ring-necked pheasants go? And they said, unleashed dogs killed them. And that was it for me. After that, I was like, I'm done. I'm done being nice. I'm done. I will say something. I will do something, within the bounds of the law. But I'm not going to not protect the birds in their habitat if it's within my power to do something.
And how are they even dog walkers if they're not walking their dogs? They're just letting them go on course. Like, why even go to Central Park with them if you're not going to restrict them from going anywhere?
Well, I get the desire to let you, like I said, I'm a dog lover. Oh, gosh, why did I say that? No, but I understand the desire to let your dog run free and get exercise and run around, of course.
Okay, and go someplace else.
Well, there are parts of the park where you can do that up until 9 a.m.
Right, and then I get there at 9, and there are all these dogs off leash, and they're not supposed to be. We just saw last weekend.
There's a sign on, so when you're crossing the street, I forgot what street it was, there's a pole.
106th Street, I think.
And there's a sign on it on the way back from school. I see it every time, and it's like, this dog, so there was like a pit bull off leash or something, and it like attacked 2 other dogs on 2 different dates, and those dogs died, so.
I heard about that.
No, I understand where you're coming from. And I think that you're right in the cosmic sense. You're on the side of right to protect the birds. I get that. I would say, if it's not guilty of being not truthful, is that I would criticize that at the point where you kind of lead people to believe that you might be doing something horrible to their pet, that to me is not, you've crossed a line there that I could not defend, but that's just my opinion. Periel doesn't agree. She thinks it's okay, I think. Yeah, so that's how I feel about it.
I think that, I mean, you'll excuse me. I mean, I think that these people are assholes. I think a lot of these people are assholes. I mean, I think that what she said, and I didn't follow it super closely, was disgusting and appalling. I'm curious as to Juanita. What did Juanita have to say? You said that she agreed with Christian 100%.
And I've never watched the video either, so.
Yeah,
well, you don't need
she
to.
agreed. My wife, no, my wife's of color, maybe, but I have no idea. But yeah, she got very angry with me, and not that I was even bashing you. I just kept saying to her, but Juanita, even if she's in the wrong, at the point where you feel that the safety of your pet or God could be that you're going to react. It doesn't matter what came before. You're going to react to protect that pet.
So what are you supposed to do? Like, what's your other recourse?
He should have called 911. He should have called 911, in my opinion.
About what?
About a woman with a dog off the leash.
But you think they're not?
Are you serious?
There's a white lady with a dog off the leash.
let me tell you something. The number of times I've been in the Ramble and folks have their dogs off the leash and there's a cop standing right there doing nothing?
Obviously this is more, I mean, it's not a credit to the people who don't take this seriously, but obviously very few people take this as seriously as you do. That's just a statement.
Well, no, if you talk to the birders, we all take it very seriously.
But you're a small segment of the population compared to the doggers.
Well, but in the Ramble during migration, we are a large segment of the population. Yeah. We are a big part of it.
Now, do you have a really serious pair of binoculars?
I do. I have a pair that was gifted to me on my 50th birthday from my dad. As a 50th.
Oh, and what are the binoculars? What brands are they? Like what?
Oh yeah, we see people with like huge, bigger than I can even stretch out my hands, just eyeing out a bird that's like point blank from them.
Well, that's a little overkill. But mine are a pair of Swarovskis, which are kind of expensive, which is why it was a really magnificent gift from my dad for my 50th birthday.
That is a beautiful gift.
Yeah, no, it was really nice.
How old is your dad?
And I want money from Swarovski for the spot. No, my dad is gone, and that's one reason why they're precious to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my dad died too. All right. Well, what else is on your mind? We can talk about anything you want. We're done answering the questions about the incident.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the craziest bird you've ever seen in your birding experience?
Oof, craziest bird I've ever seen. It might be a harpy eagle. It is arguably the largest eagle in the world. Kind of depends on how you're measuring it. But it lives in Central and South America. And since I was your age, I'd always wanted to see a harpy eagle. It was kind of stuck in my head. And I got the chance in the middle of COVID. So when nobody was going anywhere, a friend was going down there. He had booked all the accommodations and rented the Jeep and would be doing all the driving because I'm a typical New Yorker. I don't drive. So I was like, I'm never going to get a chance like this again.
Oh, that's a picture of it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had to so I have bird news. I share it with my class every single week. I have to prepare it. Sometimes I even do like every science class. I have 3 science classes a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I prepare stuff. So that was on there. I have over 500 slides of all the birds I've did. I have Central Park. I have, when I was in Israel, I have a bunch of different places. And what was the farthest you'd have to travel to see a bird?
Well, there's the farthest I've traveled, and birding was part of it. Birding is always part of it whenever I travel. But I would say Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What bird was it?
Well, penguins. A couple of different kinds of penguins. And then you also see.
Do they mate for life?
Rockhopper, emperor.
No, unfortunately, I didn't. Particularly emperor, I would have loved to see. But I got a Delhi Gen 2, and what was the other one I got? Now I'm blanking. Anyway, those are two of the.
Oh, the tufted penguin's really funny.
They are very, very funny.
Tufted penguin, Tiana.
There's a picture of a fat one. There's a picture of a fat one on
And the other nice thing is going down to Antarctica, you cross through what's called the Drake Passage, which is this confluence of like 3 different oceans, and it creates these wicked, horrible winds. But that's what albatrosses love, because those winds they just ride it.
They
with
fly
ease.
for years. The wandering albatross can fly for 9 years, right?
Yeah, they're not flying that whole time.
There he is.
Yeah.
There's somebody.
Well, no, sorry, that's a tufted puffin. That's not a penguin.
Oh, good going, Tiana.
Well, no, but actually, that's an innocent mistake, because penguins are almost exclusively
No, I meant
south
to
of
say
the
puffin.
equator.
Don't defend her.
And puffins are the equivalent of penguins in the northern hemisphere.
Kind of just
They are-
smaller.
Have you been
Bit smaller.
Have you been to Costa Rica?
I have 3 times, and I got this resplendent quetzal, which is a bird. Yeah, it's put that one up, Tiana. Okay.
That's a rockhopper.
Yeah, that's a rockhopper penguin.
Google's lying.
Yeah, I got back from Costa Rica recently, and we saw all kinds of amazing.
Oh yeah, no, Costa Rica is birding heaven. Any tropical American birding is going to be absolutely amazing.
On your show, where did you go? You went somewhere in like Central America?
No, we went to Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, and you saw a Cuban toady.
Yeah, Puerto Rican toady, very similar.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're adorable. They're the cutest birds ever.
My favorite part, I like put it on hold just to show my parents, was when the what kind of duck was it? They jump out of the trees and they like.
Oh, wood duck.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the wood ducks. I've seen one in person.
Yeah.
Me and my dad have a picture of it.
There was a pair of wood ducks in the north end of the park for a while.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's
I'm going to
gorgeous.
become a birder.
And whenever you see one of the ducks, you can see its tail feathers at the back. When they go up, you can see spirals at the end of their tails. Those are
Do
really
you mean
cool.
to tell me that when I was like in middle school and high school, desperately trying to get with women, you were able to enjoy these birds? Like, well,
There you go.
you're so
Here's
much
the
luckier.
picture. Here's the wood duck me and my dad saw.
Yeah, no. It's,
Oh wow, very good, Ari.
It's a spectacular bird, and the funny thing is that when you guys remember the mandarin duck, when New York was losing its mind for the
Yeah,
mandarin
there
duck.
was one in Central Park, one of the lakes.
Sure. So this mandarin duck shows up in Central Park. Now,
How did you even get there?
Well, this is the thing, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but you can like order like a bunch of mandarin ducks for like $9.95 online.
That's
and
it?
raise them.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're
It looks
available.
they look like somebody painted them. I thought they'd be thousands.
Mandarin duck, Tiana.
They're exotic.
Oh my God.
Whoa!
But that bird, which was causing such a stir in Central Park, there was a wood duck like right next to it, and they're all going, the mandarin duck, and I'm like, look at the wood duck right next to it.
Wood duck, wood duck, wood duck.
And the wood duck and the mandarin duck are actually close relatives. So, they're from a group of ducks that got the blessings in terms of the looks.
And whenever you see a duck flying too, you could see underneath their wings they'll usually have a blue patch, and it's really cool.
It depends
their
on the
wing.
species. There's a patch often on the wing. I think it's called the speculum, and then also the underside of the wing.
How many varieties of birds are there in Central Park?
Oh, so many. There's titmice.
Ari, wait a minute.
I like your enthusiasm. I think
Tell me if he's right or wrong after you finish. Go ahead.
roughly about 200 species you can see in Central Park. And a lot of that is because of all the migrants that funnel through, because New York sits.
We got to get rid of those migrants, I thought.
Yeah, right? That's why I always I always laugh at Donald Trump, because he's like, oh, we got to keep the Mexicans out. And I'm like, dude, the house finch is all over North America. You know what its scientific name is? Carpoticus mexicanus. It's not going anywhere. But yeah,
The hardest working bird, by the way, in my experience. Go ahead.
migrants are moving up the coast, following the coastline, and they fly smack into New York City, and it's a sea of concrete. There's no place for them to fuel to rest, so they all funnel into Central Park, and it concentrates the birds, which is why Central Park is such a popular place to bird, because you go in there and you look this way and you look that way and you look this way, and before you know it, you've seen 20 different kinds of warblers. Warblers are the stars of the spring. They're small, they're
Your
active,
favorite,
they're gorgeous.
I
Yeah.
drew it
Is
for
your
you.
boyfriend a birder?
Yes, he is. He wasn't always. He was sort of birding adjacent. And then as we got together, he started birding more. And now, I knew he was lost when I was away in California. And he said, yeah, I'm grabbing your scope and going out to the beaches of Long Island to look for snowy owls. And I'm like, okay, he's fallen to the dark side.
Have you taken to any of his interests?
Somewhat, yes. His family is very much into puzzles and games. He's a big gaming family.
You don't mean jigsaw puzzles. You mean like math problems?
Actually, any kind of games,
kind.
really. And so there's one game in particular that he and I like to play, though we haven't done it in a while. And so we'll play that game, and he always kicks my butt.
Oh, final question. We have to go. What did you major in college?
I was a political science major. I thought I wanted to go to law school, and thank God I got disabused of that notion very quickly. Though my grandmother never quite accepted it. She always
That
I wasn't going to be a lawyer.
I actually went to law school and then gave it up. I mean, I went to law school and then gave it up.
You gave it up formally. You didn't really give it up.
Well, we went earlier. We went to Mexico for winter break. Me and my mom and other family friends. We saw a bunch of different birds. Magnificent frigate. I'm gonna say it too fast, so we can't put up the pictures. But ruddy turnstones, frigate birds, just so many.
Yeah, no, they're fabulous.
Wow, you raised a real birder here.
I
I'm
did not.
stunned, Ari.
This is actually your new son.
All right. Well, and I think that's been a wonderful interview, and I'm very pleased to meet you. You're always welcome to come to the Comedy Cellar and hang out. Anything else? Anything else anything on the top of your head in the world? Anything you want to? Your political science major? I'm sure you're fuming about politics or this and that.
Oh my goodness! Don't get me started. I already talked about DC statehood, but just keep looking up. There's tons of birds, no matter where you are. There are always birds there, and just drink them in, enjoy them, and do what you can to help save them.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir.
You want to say one last thing?
yeah.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Why is the black Burer warbler your favorite bird?
Because I saw that daylow fiery orange throat on that little tiny bird, and I was smitten. Yeah.
When did you see it first?
Oh gosh, many years ago now. Many years ago. Yeah.
I love Keep Looking Up. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. No. Well, it's a good way of life.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you.